Hello friends, Rockley Smile here today with some unexpected AAA game news, and I know I'm not quite the right person to usually speak on this type of stuff, but I wanted to, as an Overwatch fan, as a sort of former sort of fan of Blizzard. I say former because like World of Warcraft, yeah, Diablo, yeah, but like everything's a bit up in the air these days. I've been on the roller coaster ride that has been the Overwatch 2 game development process, and finding out today Jeff Kaplan has left Blizzard Entertainment after 19 years, and being the face of Overwatch 2 and Overwatch 1, it really rubs me the wrong way and feels really awkward and feels really badly timed. And I kind of wanted to bounce that off of you all and see if you had a similar response. My first thought upon finding this out and seeing that there wasn't really like a proper explanation, like they didn't really get into any of the nitty-gritty. There's just sort of, you know, the usual platitudinous kind of PR speak stuff in their Play Overwatch forum post regarding Jeff Kaplan leaving. There's the just kind of like quick overview about Aaron Keller taking over, and then at the bottom just a little quick statement from Jeff. And I think the statement actually wasn't even there at the beginning when this first got posted. I think it got added afterward. But I might be wrong about that. It says, I am leaving Blizzard Entertainment after 19 amazing years. I was truly an honor of a lifetime, an opportunity to create worlds and heroes for such a passionate audience. I want to express my deep appreciation to everyone at Blizzard who supported our games, our game teams, and our players. But I want to say a special thanks to wonderful game developers that shared in the journey of creation with me. Never accept the world as it appears to be. Always dare to see it for what it could be. I hope you do the same. GG. Jeffrey Kaplan. Now, he's a jokey guy. He keeps it kind of casual. As you can see, he didn't caps like any of the stuff in that statement and started a sentence with but, whatever. Doesn't matter. He's a quirky kind of guy. And he's been with Blizzard for ages. Why now, though? Why now would you choose to leave the company in the midst of what would probably be the peak of your career, working on Overwatch 2 in... Well, I mean, it's really hard to gauge exactly where they are in terms of development. The process has been very opaque, and admittedly so by them. They wanted to kind of open that up a little bit more in the coming months, but things have been really rocky. Like, we thought the game was probably going to be out in fall of 2020. That didn't really happen. We were told, you know, expect great things at BlizzConline, they were calling it. We waited for that. It was kind of exciting, kind of a little disappointing, depending on who you ask. But some new news did come out, but among that news was not a release date. And that's kind of okay. I mean, I'm more of the opinion that they need the time they need to take to get the game done and get it done properly. That's fine. I'm not the type of person that gets pissed about, you know, game delays. And usually when you do that, it's really, you're going to lose your own value in doing so. Putting pressure on people who don't need it. And of course, with COVID, 2020 was kind of a wash of a year. I think we all can kind of recognize that. Of course, you know, parts of the community of Overwatch are going to say the opposite and say, well, it doesn't matter. They should have been, you know, working remotely. You know, we demand more stuff. Sure. I mean, yeah, there should have been probably a bit more content in Overwatch over the years. And I've seen people blaming Jeff for that himself. You do have to keep in mind, of course, that there are people over Jeff Kaplan. And there are, you know, financial lines that the people above them need to seem to keep tidy. And that's where I think this kind of gets really awkward. Why would you leave the company after 19 years working on your biggest project as the face of that project, suddenly with no major, you know, obvious reason to leave? I mean, there may have been private information, obviously, that could have taken place. If there was something in his personal life that we're, you know, not meant to know about. And if that's the case, I fully admit this video is a waste of time, and I apologize. I have to say, though, I wonder a little bit, because, well, we know how Blizzard was when they were Blizzard, and we know how Blizzard is when they're Blizzard Activision. And this is kind of where I've had my mind the whole time worrying about Overwatch 2 development. If you tracked how Overwatch 1 went, they had loot boxes for monetization, and they had a single purchase price for the game itself. Now, that has kind of come and gone as a trend going into from like 2016 into now 2021. Overwatch has not stayed in touch and in step with the trends of generally how other first-person online shooters have been going. I don't think that's a shocking thing to say. I think anyone who's played the game recognizes the loot boxes are sort of an artifact of their time, and that's kind of not something we were really sure how was going to get reconciled in Overwatch 2. Now, again, I said I wasn't sure how far into development we are regarding Overwatch 2, and that's relevant because, say we're roughly 80% in now. Maybe they have a pretty good idea of what the product offering is going to be on launch, even though we don't know exactly when launch is. Say it's early 2022 or, quarter two, something like that. We're starting to get to the point now, though, where I think they may have a decent idea of what is going to crystallize as an offering. And I think that's when we start to think about what is going to end up being monetized and how that monetization is going to go. And my best guess for why Jeff left, if you'll pardon my speculation, is I think he's been pushing back against Activision, and they've been pressuring to try and get some of those monetization trends in step with the other elements in the other games in the industry to try and, just raise revenue, because that's how everything works. The fact that Overwatch has stayed so far back in terms of trends, I think has probably been a sticking point for a bunch of people in the financial positions. Doesn't that just seem kind of like a reasonable assumption to make? There's probably been some tension built up over the years about that. Overwatch has just not been generating as much money for them as it could have been had they monetized it differently. And I think the way that the loot boxes were structured could have been a bigger deal, but they didn't really lean on it the way they could have. You can pretty much get everything in the game without paying for loot boxes. It's there for people who want it, but you don't have to partake. They do have the All-Star skins, which cost tokens, but you can get those from watching Overwatch League. So again, that's another avenue where they could have made more money. They kind of didn't. The only other thing I can think of that's just like a direct revenue generating thing is, the merchandise from it, which, most every product has some merchandise associated with it these days. And then there's the BlizzCon line or, BlizzCon Pass, whatever products are associated with that. And I think for this year's it was that the StarCraft-themed Reinhardt skin, which costs you about $40, which is crazy. Obviously, you get other stuff with it, so it's like less egregious in that respect if you're, in it for all that stuff. But as someone who just pretty much plays Overwatch out of all of the Blizzard offerings, $40 for a skin, that's rough. I can't get behind that at all. I really want the skin because it really bugs me that I'm going to have one that I'm just going to be missing, try to collect them, and I'm actually really close to collecting all of them. Aside from like the Pink Mercy skin and a couple others that just aren't on offer anymore. But it kind of bugs me, like that's just something that's sitting there that's really, really egregiously monetized. But anyway, you don't need that stuff. It's all cosmetic. And there's so much more content they could have been putting into the idea of churning out the usual stuff. Adding skins to weapons and further divvying up monetization amongst, skins for characters and that. And I just have to think that that's probably what happened here. There was probably a point where they reached a wall and said, I'm not willing to compromise on what you want to do with the monetization. And it could have even been another factor. It could have been other things all coming together. But there could have been collective pressure. Maybe Jeff put his foot down and said, I'm not interested. And then the people above said, don't care, we're making this money, whatever. And it may have just been like, well, we're going to go on without you, whether or not you approve. So here's your option. You can resign, and we'll figure it out. And then you can walk away, and we'll just say it's a clean break, and so on and so forth. I feel like I would put money on that being what happened here, and it pains me to see that could be the case. I imagine... And again, I'm just, speculating, but if that was what it was, being kind of pushed out of your own community, your own game development process over something that you were actively, avidly fighting against, that's got to be so frustrating. So I don't know Jeff personally. I don't really know him that well as a person. I'm not really, defending him either, because, I could just be entirely wrong. I just feel like there's so many pieces of the puzzle that have lined up in the process of this game's development that make you just cast questions about what led this to be the way it is. That's just where my mind goes. The aggressiveness of how Activision likes to monetize things, and Overwatch's weird reticence to even approach some of it. I just feel like there's a recipe for collision there. Yeah, so that's kind of what I'm thinking, and I'm really worried about what that could mean for the game now. I have no idea if Aaron is going to be a decent game director. I certainly hope that's the case. And I mean, he's a veteran as well. There's not many people left from old Blizzard anymore. And the way that games have been going, I mean, there is sort of like a modern era now, where most of the people who worked in game design and you know, all of this back in the late 90s, early 2000s, it's mostly rolled over to a new kind of cutthroat approach toward game development and monetization. Everything's much more aggressive. So I don't really know what we're going to do with that. If Overwatch 2 ends up being, you know, battle pass to hell, that's going to be a tough sell. I really kind of like the way that they monetized Overwatch, and I'm not the type of person that usually is even in favor of any of this stuff. If it was possible, a single, you know, $40, $60, you know, payment up front, that's kind of the way I like to do things. Now, you know, PlayStation, Sony in general, kind of pushing the idea that it should be $70 for games. I'm not super into that, but, you know, there's a lot of bigger discussions to be had about monetization on the back of this stuff. I just worry we're headed even deeper into dark waters, and this game would probably love to lead the charge, to be honest. Well, without Papa Jeff at the forefront, perhaps. So let me know. Do you disagree? Do you think I'm just I'm huffing glue at this point? Am I just freaking brainwashed, completely talking nonsense? I hope not. But also kind of I hope so, because really, the best answer would be that I'm entirely wrong. But I have very little hope for what Blizzard Activision has these days in terms of gamers' virtues in mind. They don't really want to look out for players the way that I feel like Jeff Kaplan has done in the past. And I've heard plenty of people accuse him of this, that, and the other thing, but I also don't think that they understand how corporate leadership works, that they are still at the behest of other people telling them what to do. Even if they're the game director, they may be making impossible decisions and also living with the consequences from people pulling strings behind the scenes. You know, if the people above him say, you need to make it possible for us to make more money off the game without revealing that we've told you to do so, well, now you're in a rough spot. And I'm not saying that's exactly what could have happened, but there have probably been times when making choices about when things come out or what things come out or the timelines of things, I don't think that was all up to Jeff, but I think he took the brunt of a lot of it. Anyway, that's kind of my 2 cents. Sorry. Sorry if I'm completely off my rocker with this one, but I just wanted to speak to it because, again, big Overwatch fan. Even if maybe they haven't always deserved that fandom. But yeah, what do you think? Let me know. I'd love to hear from you. Thank you for watching. I will see you next time. Goodbye.